We are nearing the time, or at least the estimated timeline, for the next FLC Lord here, hopefully in March, for the High Elves. So we've seen basically this FLC list. We've seen some Skaven on it, we've seen the Lizardmen on it, we've seen the High Elves on it, but we had seen in that one leaked picture that we went over not too long ago about the possibility of Shadow Warriors coming in the Rise of the Tomb Kings DLC. It looks like everything else was kind of confirmed from that in Tretch Craventail and the Tomb Kings themselves, but we did not get Shadow Warriors. So what are we going to see with that High Elf FLC? Are we going to see an FLC, of course, free downloadable content, DLC, downloadable, whatever, free LC? What are we going to see? Are we going to see the Sisters of Avalorn finally coming? Are we going to see the Shadow Warriors? Are we going to see Alarielle in a prelude to the Shadow Warriors, or Alithanar in Alarielle in a prelude to the Sisters of Avalorn? Or are we going to see Alithanar in a prelude to the Shadow Warriors? So I'm very curious. I don't know what are we going to see? But one option that no one's really talked about, and we didn't even really talk about when we talked about the list of all of the High Elves and all of their army lists, we really didn't touch on this. So what I want to talk about today are the Dragon Mages of Caledor. And we're going to go into the lore blurb about them as we always do, and I'm going to talk to you guys about what their abilities are from the tabletop, and as well as why I think, or at least how I think, they will be implemented in a Total War Warhammer 2 scenario. So let's read this lore blurb here real quick for the Dragon Mages of Caledor. Into every generation of the Caledorian nobility, a handful of dragon mages are born, elves who have a sensitivity not only to magic, but also to the minds of slumbering dragons. Many nascent dragon mages only recognize their destiny when their sleep becomes haunted by dreams of fire and blood, in which they ride dragons the color of the setting sun. Such dreams mark the dying days of a mage's tutelage, for they herald an impetuousness that is ill-suited to the study of anything other than fire magic. When able, the dragon mage journeys to the sulfur-clogged caverns below the mountains of Caledor, there to awaken a slumbering sun dragon to serve as his steed. This is a process that normally takes months or even years, yet a dragon mage can fully awaken a dragon with but a whisper of its name. Thus begins a bond that lasts until either mount or rider is slain in Ulthuan's defense. So, I mean, already right there you have a pretty epic-sounding unit. You have and something that is also not done in the game already. We do not have a lord that is a caster for High Elves. We don't have a lord that is a caster for Dark Elves, which is very uncharacteristic because in the tabletop, you played High Elves and you played Dark Elves most of the time with a casting lord. For instance, I played in my actual tabletop army of the High Elves, I had a Prince, which is just the hero version of their melee heroes, and then I had an Archmage or Archmage. I did not actually have a I'm sorry, I had a noble. The Prince is the Lord version, but I did not have an actual fighting Lord. I had just a casting Lord, because the casting ability of the High Elves is very, very profound in tabletop, and it is not reflected that way in Total War Warhammer 2. It is not reflected that way in Total War Warhammer 2 for the Slann either, with the Lizardmen. That's very lacking. It's the same thing with the Dark Elves. The Dark Elves have access to all the lores. The High Elves have access to all the lores. Lizardmen have access, well, the Slann have access to all the lores. Instead, we kind of get these watered-down casters that only have access to, I believe the High Elves have light, life, and high magic. As I think about that, yeah, they don't have access to Heavens, which is kind of like a de facto good guy lore. I think Dov Plays and I were talking about that. He's like, why the hell isn't Heavens there? I'm like, I don't know, man. But they don't have access to metal. They don't have access to shadows or death. And I mean, really, they need death to stay competitive. And the High Elves are already under the kind of power curve right now. They need something to kind of push them over that edge. And with the Tomb Kings having come out, the Dragon Mages of Caledor are a really great addition to the High Elf roster in a kind of a thematic way that would directly counter a Tomb King army and a lot of other armies. But the Sun Dragon, as we know, is the youngest of the dragons: Sun, Moon, Star. And we also know that the Sun Dragon is just like the Dragon Mage of Calidor is very impetuous, as we've discovered here, but also full of fury, always willing to dive into combat. And that's kind of the same moniker that the Dragon Mages of Calidor subscribe to, that they have this kind of mage cast that is, even against other mages, way more willing to jump into the thick of things. And that's kind of a cool thing that you've got with the Dragon Mages of Calidor here. But they only have access to the lore of fire. And we've seen how Total War has implemented multiple lores in factions. Like you take a look at Empire, you take a look at Chaos, and even some of the other ones for High Elves and Dark Elves, how the Empire has access to each and every one of their lores, minus, of course, the ones that are missing, Death. But I could see that being, Dragon Mage of Calidor being a great way to add in into fire magic into an army that is going to need something to help them really oppose the Tomb Kings. As we all know, Tomb Kings do take quite a bit of damage from fire magic. That's not to say that the High Elves only can get fire magic, the lore of fire, through the Dragon Mage of Calidor. Their normal mages have access to it too, as in Tabletop. But let's kind of go through some of their abilities here. They have the typical abilities that any High Elf has from the Tabletop: always strike first, martial prowess, valor of ages, that kind of jazz. But they do have some other cool abilities here, one being called Reckless, and this gives a bonus to cast spells from the lore of fire. But they don't get any kind of bonuses for dispels. So that's not really important. You don't dispel in this game. But what would be cool though is if Reckless was almost like kind of like an arcane conduit without being an arcane conduit. Rather than giving it a passive regeneration, maybe it's just a one-time shot to your Winds of Magic, or maybe it reduces the cost of your next. Because that's something I would really like to see in the game, is ability that you can trigger that would reduce the cost of this, or make X, Y, and Z cost less. Like, you trigger Reckless, okay, now my next lore of fire ability is cast at a little bit lower Winds of Magic cost, something along those lines. Another special rule they've got is Warrior Mage. And basically this just means that the Dragon Mage starts off with the Flaming Sword of Ruin. In the Tabletop, you have to roll to see which actual spells you have. You don't just say, okay, I've got all these spells, I'm going to not choose these ones like you do in Total War Warhammer. You actually have to roll dice dictated on, or depending upon your actual wizard level, and then that's how many spells you have and which spells you do have. So rather than rolling for it, you automatically get the Flaming Sword of Ruin. So maybe Warrior Mage has something to do with, even not necessarily a special rule for the Dragon Mages of Calidor, but it's something that it actually just kind of, okay, in their stat profile, they are a bit more of a hybrid lord, something that I think that the High Elves need. Like, I mean, you take a look at Total War Warhammer 2, you've got Malekith as this beastly hybrid lord. You even look at Arkan the Black, who is a hybrid lord as well. Even though he kind of looks like he would be purely a caster lord, he's not. He just gets up in there and melts face with his damn Arkan Tombblade action. But I think that the High Elves need that. Teclis has his ability to get up there and fight, but it's not a true hybrid role. And even in Tabletop, he is not considered a hybrid caster by any stretch of the imagination. So the Dragon Mage of Calidor, I think, is a really great way to get one of the biggest strengths of having the High Elves in the competitive meta, which is they're dragons, and a great way to take advantage of the supposed, from a lore perspective, magic ability of the High Elves. I really want to see the High Elves kind of dominate the magic phase like they did so much in the Tabletop. Like right now, I feel like, oh, you're taking High Elves and you're using magic, great. You're no better or worse than any other caster. You just have access to high magic. And with Fiery Convocation taking, what is it? I think it's 8 to 9 minutes to cast a damn spell. You really, it's a level playing field across the game, if not even under, again, the power curve. So here is my speculative opinion on what I think another really good FLC lord would be. Rather than us taking a look at a legendary lord, maybe just something that isn't necessarily a legendary lord, that is just a nice new generic lord for the faction, but something that I think that the faction kind of needs. Obviously, the faction really needs an anti-large AP ranged unit that is not a bolt thrower, but we probably won't get those until we see Sisters of Avalorn come into the game, who will probably also have some sort of magic or fire attack here. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this little lore blurb here on the Dragon Mages of Calidor. We didn't touch on them previously, and I wanted to give them the proper justice that they do deserve. They've kind of shrunk over the years in the actual tabletop books themselves. So hopefully this gives you guys an opinion, or at least an idea of how the Dragon Mages of Kalador fit into not just Total War Warhammer, but also the lore of the game. I mean, we've talked about how Kalador is this land of very noble but precocious dragon princes. And yes, I suppose it'll fight for you, but at the same time, they are very vehement in their defense of Ulthuan. The dragon mages of Kalador kind of mirror that exact same sentiment, although with the impetuousness and the tenacity of the overall role that the dragon mage fulfills. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this video here today. We're going to have a lot more lore coming your way here. Again, we've got our 40k lore. We've got our big Total War Warhammer 3 suspected Darklands lore. I guess that's what I'm going to call it. Plenty more coming on the horizon here, guys. But don't forget to like or comment. Let me know if there's anything you want to know about the Dragon Mages of Kalador, or maybe even your opinion of what's coming out in the next FLCs for some of the other races. But thanks for watching, guys. Have a good one and take care.